Hello everybody, welcome back to the channel. My name is Ron, and today we're going to be talking about some Plants vs. Zombies. We recently were streaming Plants vs. Zombies, and we wanted to do a no sun run. This was a fun challenge, and it turns out we could actually do it. I was really surprised at how well the challenge actually worked, but we managed to get through the entire game without picking up any sun. We had some struggles there, especially on some particular maps, and I felt like I wanted to do another challenge after this, so we did another run on New Game Plus, only using the mushrooms. So this was a mushroom only run. That's the only thing we could use. I should say that I technically cheated on this challenge twice. I figured I might have to at one point or another, but it turns out I didn't. So I think one or two of the boards I beat with the aid of garlic, which was not entirely necessary. I actually didn't use it past those two boards, and it turned out we were able to get through that. The other time that I cheated was technically on the second stage, which was the night map where you get all the mushrooms, at least originally. And I used the grave busters because I was not aware that they didn't count as a mushroom. I actually wasn't aware of that until I got one during the night maps, and it was in my Zen garden, and it wasn't asleep. And I realized then it wasn't a mushroom. We start out this challenge the same way that you do on New Game Plus. Now, on New Game Plus, there was a new mechanic that is introduced into the game for anybody unaware. You are given 3 plants that are selected for you each mission. So every board, you just get 3 plants, so 3 of your seed slots are taken. That's not a guarantee that they will be taken by useful plants for this challenge, because again, I was only using mushrooms. So these were things like the puff shroom, the fume shroom, gloom shroom, hypno shroom, doom shroom, ice shroom, magnet shroom, and the scaredy shroom, I believe, were all the shrooms that I could use. Oh, sun shroom too. I forgot about that one. So I did have a way of producing sun this time, which that came in handy. I also used the coffee bean because you kind of need to have the coffee bean in order to do this challenge, obviously, otherwise the day maps would be completely impossible to actually win with just mushrooms. And we started out during the day maps, and the day maps were really not too bad. They weren't too much of a struggle. Most of the time I would just be placing puff shrooms down to body block the lanes whenever I could. I would put sun shrooms down, put coffee beans on them to farm sun, and then put something like the scaredy shrooms in the back, and they would usually do the majority of the work. After that, I could then start building up fume shrooms, and it was pretty much just scaredy shrooms and fume shrooms for the first couple levels. It was really just that for the entire day map. Again, the puff shrooms are still bodies, the sun shrooms were making stuff. I didn't really use any of the other shrooms, so no doom shrooms, hypno shrooms, or ice shrooms, or any of those. This was slower overall than when we did a no sun run because we weren't killing things incredibly quick. However, once we got to the second area, which is the night map, we had an extremely easy time because all of our mushrooms could just be placed normally and fight normally. There was no part whatsoever I struggled on this one, except for the fact that I did accidentally use the grave busters. I don't think that that would have mattered, even with the amount of graves that we had, since we had an entire just filled full of mushrooms. We would have killed everything anyway. So we completed the mini games, moved on, and went on to the second day maps. This is where I wasn't sure exactly how this run would work. So at this point we were in the pool. I guess I also technically used the lily pads and the flower pots, but I don't think I could have really gotten around that in any way, just with how crazy the roof actually got on New Game Plus. We'll talk about that in a little bit. But on the day maps, when we were there, I did try a new strategy, because my current strategy of putting scaredy shrooms up in the back and then just using them to pick off things was not working. It was just taking too long for me to actually do that. So this is when I started to invest in the gloom shroom. And this was pretty much the game-winning plant for me this entire run. The gloom shroom definitely was MVP this time. Puff shrooms were super useful for just, once again, being bodies, and that's usually what I use them for in pretty much all instances. But the gloom shroom itself was the main damage-dealing plant. So what I would try to do very early on was to plant enough sun shrooms and get them awake to where I could potentially just sacrifice the other starting lanes. I didn't really care about them. I just needed to get gloom shrooms, and I needed to get them in the 2 closest middle lanes. So this way, as soon as I put a gloom shroom down, it could potentially cover up to 3 lanes, which was super useful against any of the swimming zombies. And then I would just be working constantly towards putting fume shrooms down, using them as kind of longer range to protect the gloom shrooms, using puff shrooms as the bodies, as well as puff shrooms on lily pads to protect all of the pool area, and then occasionally putting scaredy shrooms in the back. But most of the time I just focused on fume shrooms and gloom shrooms, and then puff shrooms. That was it. And for the longest time I actually didn't have all 10 slots either that I could use. so I was even more handicapped then, where 3 of my slots were taken. I only had 9 slots in total, so I could grab 6 mushrooms. At this point, I did switch out garlic, and I did that for 2 matches, just because I figured it would be necessary to protect the gloom shrooms, but that turned out to not be true at all. I could just set up puff shrooms, and they would just body block for the gloom shrooms the majority of the time. I rarely got any of my gloom shrooms eaten, however, some of them did get run over by like the Zambonis, and there was a couple other issues during the pool maps, but for the most part, the day map was pretty doable. It's just it was kind of a slog to get through. We moved on to the night maps then, and I figured the night maps once again would be fairly easy to beat because we have all the mushrooms, so we have all of our strongest units there. We don't have to worry about the coffee beans, and there was only one particular enemy that could hurt us. And it kind of did hurt us again. We once again kind of got stuck on stage 4-4. This is when balloon boys show up, and this is when balloon boys are the most prevalent. That is a big issue for this particular challenge because there is no mushroom that can shoot down the balloon boys. There's only 2 units in the entire game, I guess 3 units in the entire game that can actually do that. The blower is one of them, which is not a mushroom. The cattail, which is also not a mushroom. And the cactus, which is also not a mushroom. But that doesn't mean we were completely defenseless to the balloon boys. And I knew this going into it. That's why I thought this one was pretty doable. We had doom shrooms. Doom shrooms were the nuke, and they blew up the area. They would kill any of the balloon boys that it hit. The problem with this, though, is that doom shrooms have an extremely long cooldown compared to the amount of balloon boys they threw at us. They threw a ton of balloon boys at us, and we did get pretty close a couple of times, but always failed just trying to do this. So the doom shrooms were just simply not enough. What I had to do was actually go into my Zen garden, sell all of my plants that I had accumulated over the time so that I could buy that 10th slot. What I put in that 10th slot was the imitator plant. So this could be anything, and I once again chose doom shrooms, so this way I would have 2 doom shrooms that I could potentially use to blow up the area and to clear balloon boys. Another problem with this that I found out is that the doom shroom does not reach the entire map. I always thought that the doom shroom did because it always seemed like it blew up a huge area, but no, it just blows up in a fairly large area that clears up most things. So there was occasions where I just missed balloon boys. By the time we actually finished the stage, there was an insane amount of balloon boys they threw at us. We cleared up all of them and we managed to win, but I think it cost me all but 2 of either my pool cleaners or lawnmowers. So it was a really rough stage. After that, though, we really didn't have any more difficult stages at night. There were still balloon boys that they threw at us occasionally on other maps, and I think I lost another one of those, but I think that was our only other loss during the night maps. We then went on to the roof maps, and the roof maps were definitely the most difficult from this challenge, even though we had already had a pretty tough night and a very tough daytime during the pool maps. The roof map was by far the most difficult because now we had to manage the flower pots as well. So we had to manage all of this. We were still trying to build things. Once again, the gloom shrooms pretty much came in clutch here because the gloom shrooms, even though they have limited range, that doesn't really matter when enemies can be funneled into certain lanes. So once again, if I could cover up the lanes, I could potentially cover all lanes with just 2 gloom shrooms. And that was always my strategy, and it worked out most of the time. The fume shrooms actually worked out pretty well on the roof too, because it seems like they can shoot over the slant to some extent. And this time we did lose quite a few times. I wasn't sure how we were going to deal with the big guys, because the only way that I could really think about killing them would either be to freeze them with the ice shroom, or to potentially blow them up with a doom shroom. This would cost a lot though to use any of these strategies, and luckily it turns out we didn't really need to. The gloom shrooms alone were actually strong enough to just take out the big guys. They were strong enough to take out basically everything. The catapult guys also gave us some trouble because we just kind of had to strategically place our stuff. Usually I'd put puff shrooms in the very back, that way if the catapults did show up they would take a while killing them. Sun shrooms in the next row up, and then gloom shrooms wherever I could put them. My formations looked a little bit strange on the roof, and we did lose quite a few times on here just because we simply got overrun at times, or because we got bad RNG where there was just something that happened. One of our gloom shrooms died, maybe he got abducted by the bungees. There was a lot of things that could go wrong and a lot of things that did go wrong. However, we did manage to fight through this, and on the very last board, we nearly lost at the very last second from a catapult zombie, but our gloom shroom was able to kill it just in time. So we got to the boss fight, and we played the boss fight normally, and we beat the boss extremely easy compared to the rest of this challenge. This one was even more difficult than the no sun run. It was actually insanely difficult, really. I actually do have another challenge going on currently too that we are live streaming, and this is a 2 seed slot only challenge. I figured 3 would be potentially a little bit too easy, so we were going to try 2. And I'm kind of regretting that now that we're at the pool stages. Stages 1 and 2 were pretty easy, so if you'd like to see that, be sure to come. So if you'd like to see that, be sure to come to the live streams. They are a lot of fun, and thanks everybody for suggesting this one. I love that everybody was just spamming mushroom most of the time for this challenge. Thank you guys so very much for watching this. I hope you guys enjoyed it. And special thanks to the supporters of this channel. These are my members over here on YouTube, patrons over on Patreon. They get early access to videos just like this. If you'd like to be a part of that, you can. And if you'd like to see more of my Plants vs. Zombies content, be sure to click over here on this playlist. Thanks everybody. Have a great day, and I'll talk to you next time. Bye-bye.